Welcome, dear friend, to another quiet path we walk together. Tonight, we gently open the door to ancient and powerful wisdom, subtle teachings that Buddhist masters have passed down through the ages to soothe the mind and guide the heart into truly deep rest. You are welcome to share the time and place from which you are listening. Wherever you are, know that you are not alone. This evening, I will offer a carefully chosen collection of timeless Zen stories. Simple on the surface, yet carrying profound insight into inner stillness, clarity of mind, and emotional peace. Each story contains a teaching that can softly transform how you relate to uncertainty, pressure, endless thinking, and the restless movement of the mind. These are not merely stories told to help you sleep. They are preserved reflections from wise teachers who understood something we often forget: that peace does not arise from changing the world around us, but from changing the way we perceive it. The great Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh gently reminds us that the past has already dissolved, and the future has not yet arrived. There is only one moment available for living, this present moment, quietly unfolding now. As you listen to these gentle tales, you may begin to notice something subtle occurring within you. The tight knot of worry may start to loosen. The constant hum of thoughts may gradually soften. Without effort, you may drift into a space of deeper understanding and calm awareness. So allow yourself to settle fully. Let your body rest into whatever supports you. Take one slow, peaceful breath with me now. And as you breathe out, trust that the teachings you are about to hear have been waiting patiently for you for a very long time. Our first story leads us to the simple home of a beloved Zen master, where the natural world itself becomes the teacher. This is the story of Ryoan and the bamboo shoot. In the quiet foothills of Mount Kagami, the Zen master Ryoan lived a life of deep simplicity. His small hut, no larger than a single room, stood among ancient pine trees and softly blooming cherry blossoms. For many decades, he had chosen voluntary poverty, discovering great richness in the turning of the seasons, the calls of birds, and the silent wisdom that arises in solitude. His days flowed gently, like a clear stream, unhurried and effortless, filled with meditation, poetry, and long walks through the mountain forests. Ryoan cherished every detail of the natural world. He would sit for hours watching clouds drift across the sky, seeing in their slow changes a reminder of impermanence. He listened to the morning songs of birds as if they were sacred teachings, deeper than any written scripture. To him, each falling leaf, each murmuring stream, each small insect was a living expression of Buddha nature. One spring morning, as the air filled with the delicate scent of cherry blossoms, Ryoan noticed something unusual. A small, tender bamboo shoot had begun to rise through the wooden floor of his hut, directly at the center of the room. Each day, he watched it grow taller, its pale green stalk reaching upward with quiet determination and graceful strength. The shoot seemed alive with the energy of spring itself, steady and unstoppable. Several weeks later, a visitor arrived at Ryoan's hut. The man, a merchant from the nearby village, had come seeking advice on a business concern. But when he stepped inside and saw the bamboo shoot, now nearly reaching his knee and growing stronger each day, his face filled with alarm. "Master Ryoan," the visitor said anxiously, "you must cut this bamboo at once and repair your floor before it grows any larger. If you allow it to continue, it will destroy your hut entirely. The roots will spread, the floor will break, and soon you will have no shelter." Surely you can already see the damage it is causing. Ryoan slowly opened his eyes from meditation. He had been sitting peacefully beside the bamboo, occasionally touching its smooth surface with quiet appreciation. A gentle light sparkled in his eyes, and a soft, almost childlike smile appeared on his weathered face. "No," he replied softly, shaking his head like falling snow. "To witness a bamboo shoot growing here beside me, to share my humble space with such a pure expression of life, this is a rare gift. I would rather move the hut than disturb such a miracle." The merchant stared at the old master, confused and unsettled. "But your home, your belongings, the practical matters." Ryoan chuckled quietly. A sound like soft wind chimes stirred in a passing breeze. "What is a hut compared to this teaching?" Ryoan said quietly. "This bamboo does not grow by my permission, but by the same force that turns the stars and guides the seasons. Who am I to stand in the way of such natural harmony?" Through the remaining months of growth, Ryoan continued his simple daily life around the rising bamboo. He prepared his modest meals on one side of the shoot and rested on the other. He meditated facing it as though it were a living altar. In the mornings, he would gently touch its smooth surface, greeting it like an old companion. In the evenings, he sat beside it in silence, listening to the faint sounds of its steady expansion, a quiet reminder of life's continual movement. When winter neared and the time came to seek new shelter, Ryoan gathered his few belongings without regret. He left the hut behind, offering it entirely to the bamboo, a silent gesture of respect to the natural way of things. The Buddha once taught, "If you truly care for yourself, you will not harm yourself with anger, hatred, or unwholesome thoughts." This teaching reveals a deep truth about acceptance and the wisdom of allowing life to unfold as it must. Ryoan's response to the bamboo shows the difference between resisting reality and moving in harmony with it, between seeing disruption and recognizing a deeper invitation to understanding. Why do we struggle so fiercely against unexpected changes that emerge through the fragile structures of our carefully arranged lives? Zen teachings point gently toward our attachment to control and our belief that we own our circumstances. We assume we should direct every outcome, that our preferences should outweigh the larger intelligence moving through existence. Consider how often, throughout your day, you encounter your own version of Ryoan's bamboo shoot. It may appear as an unplanned delay, a conversation that stretches longer than expected, or a sudden shift that asks you to adjust. Our habitual response often mirrors the merchant's concern. Remove the obstacle, restore order, return to what feels familiar. But what if, like Ryoan, we paused instead? What if these interruptions were not problems to eliminate, but quiet teachings arriving at the perfect moment? What if the very events that seem to threaten our sense of order are invitations to discover a gentler, more responsive way of living? In Zen practice, this is known as sacred accommodation. It is not passive surrender, nor neglect of necessary action. It is the discernment to recognize when life is offering something more meaningful than our original plans. It is learning to distinguish between the ego's desire for control and the deeper wisdom that reshapes our path for growth. The bamboo shoot in Ryoan's hut symbolizes all that arrives uninvited in our lives. A child needing attention when focus feels urgent. An illness that slows our pace. A relationship that changes and asks us to reflect. A shift in work that opens doors we never intended to walk through. These moments often carry gifts that cannot be planned or purchased. Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki once said, "In the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, in the expert's mind few." Ryoan lived with the beginner's mind. He allowed wonder to replace worry, openness to soften control. To him, a bamboo shoot growing through the floor was not a loss, but a rare teacher. This wisdom gently challenges our modern fixation on efficiency and perfection. We are trained to correct deviations, to eliminate uncertainty. Yet Ryoan's life reminds us that some of the deepest teachings do not come from what we organize, but from what organizes us. The Buddha taught, "All conditioned things are impermanent. All things are in constant change." When this truth is deeply understood, we hold our structures, both inner and outer, to greater lightness. We recognize that the shelters we build, whether physical or emotional, are temporary resting places, not fortresses meant to endure forever. Tonight, as you reflect on the areas of your life where unexpected changes are quietly growing, can you make a small space for Ryoan's understanding? Instead of immediately resisting, might you pause and ask what this bamboo shoot has come to teach you? As the Buddha taught, the wise take joy in truth and dwell in peace. Sometimes the truth that brings the deepest rest is realizing that we are not the architects of life, but grateful participants in its unfolding mystery. Now, let us turn gently toward another story, one rooted in daily practice and the hidden wisdom within simple tasks. Our next tale reveals the quiet power of purposeful action through the story of an old monk and his weeds. In the tranquil courtyard of an ancient mountain monastery, where generations of devoted practice had worn smooth the stone paths between carefully tended gardens, lived an elderly Zen master whose presence embodied patient understanding. Well into his 80s, his back curved softly like a willow shaped by many seasons of wind. Each morning at dawn, he made his slow way to the monastery's vegetable garden, a small woven basket resting in his weathered hands. The garden itself reflected mindful care, neat rows of vegetables rising from dark, fertile soil, bordered by stone paths laid long before. Morning glory vines climbed wooden frames, their blossoms opening gently to the light. A bamboo fountain offered a quiet rhythm, and the air carried the scent of earth and growth. Without exception, the old master began his work of weeding. His movements were slow and deliberate, each one infused with calm awareness, turning the simple labor into a form of moving meditation. He knelt beside each plant, loosening the soil with care, lifting each weed with its roots intact, and placing it gently into his basket. One clear morning, as sunlight filtered through the surrounding bamboo grove, a young novice approached him. Recently arrived at the monastery, the novice was filled with energy and determination, eager to demonstrate his devotion to the path. He had watched the old master's routine day after day, his mind quietly measuring the slowness of the work, calculating how much more efficiently it might be done. "Venerable teacher," the young monk said, bowing deeply, his voice respectful yet filled with restrained eagerness. "Please allow me to take this work from you. I am young, my body is strong, and my hands move quickly. My back does not ache as yours must. I could clear the entire garden of weeds before the morning ends. You could rest peacefully in the shade, and there would be no need for you to work here again for many days, perhaps even a full month." The old master paused. A small weed rested gently between his fingers, held with the same care one might give a fragile leaf. Slowly, he lifted his gaze to the young monk. In the novice's earnest eyes, he recognized a familiar fire, the same longing to accomplish, to prove worth, that had once burned brightly in his own heart many years ago. The master's eyes, softened by decades of practice and warmed by quiet humor, remained on the young monk for a long moment. "And then," he asked gently, his voice as light as morning mist, "what would I do tomorrow?" The question lingered between them like the fading echo of a temple bell, simple in sound, yet vast in depth. The young monk opened his mouth, ready to suggest other tasks, other useful contributions. But something in the master's calm silence invited him to pause, to listen more deeply. Without haste, the old monk placed the weed into his basket as if offering it with gratitude. He then bent slowly toward the next plant. There was no sense of urgency in his movement, no trace of impatience. Each action appeared complete in itself, requiring nothing more, reaching nowhere beyond the present moment. The young monk remained standing for a long while, quietly observing. He noticed how the master's attention never drifted, how his hands moved with tenderness and familiarity, how each plant seemed to be met as an old acquaintance rather than an obstacle. Gradually, a subtle shift took place within the novice's understanding. He began to realize that the purpose of weeding was not merely to remove weeds. The master was not working toward a finished future. He was fully inhabiting the process itself. The weeding was not a means to an end. It was a living meditation, a way of meeting life exactly as it appeared, moment by moment. Standing there in the gentle sunlight, watching the ancient rhythm of care and patience, the young monk suddenly understood that his question had been misplaced. He had been concerned with speed and completion, while the master was revealing something far deeper, the art of being fully present with whatever task life offers, discovering completeness within the act itself. The Buddha taught, "What we cultivate in awareness, we harvest in action." At the heart of this teaching is the distinction between doing and being, between finishing tasks and living them. The old master's quiet question points toward a profound truth about spiritual practice and purposeful living. Our modern world has trained us to view most activities as hurdles to overcome rather than doorways into presence. We hurry through daily tasks, seeing them as interruptions to our real life, always waiting for the moment when we can finally relax, finally arrive, finally be present. Why does this simple idea feel so difficult? Zen teachings gently point to our conditioning around productivity and achievement. We are taught that value lies in completion, in efficiency, in moving quickly toward future goals. In this way, the present moment becomes merely a stepping stone, never a resting place. Consider your own relationship with ordinary tasks. How often do you rush through washing dishes while thinking about what comes next? How frequently do you hurry through your morning routine, eager to reach what you believe truly matters? The old master's way suggests that the dishes themselves, the routine itself, the weeding itself can become gateways into peace. In Zen practice, there is a teaching called shikantaza, just sitting. Yet this spirit extends far beyond formal meditation. It points to just washing, just walking, just tending the garden with complete presence. When attention is whole, any activity becomes meditation. The Buddha taught, the present moment is the only time truly ours. The old master understood this deeply. By fully entering each moment of weeding, he transformed what others might call dull labor into sacred practice. He was not weeding to create a perfect garden. He was weeding as a way of being perfectly present, This wisdom quietly challenges our belief that efficiency equals insight. The young monk's offer came from kindness, yet it overlooked the deeper purpose. The master did not need weeks without weeds. He needed the daily opportunity to return to patience, awareness, and gentle care. Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Washing dishes is not only to have clean dishes, but to live fully in that moment." This captures the heart of the master's approach. Every simple task becomes an invitation to return home to the present, to discover the sacred within the ordinary. There is also a lesson here about sustainability. The young monk's effort was intense but brief. The master's practice was gentle and enduring. One burns brightly, then fades. The other nourishes transformation day by day. Tonight, as you reflect on the routine tasks in your own life, can you choose just one to meet with this quality of attention? Perhaps preparing tea, folding clothes, or arranging your space. What would it feel like not to finish it quickly, but to be fully there while doing it? The Buddha taught, "Better than 1,000 empty words is one word that brings peace." The old master's daily weeding was that word, spoken through action, repeated softly each morning, cultivating peace through presence. Now, we turn gently to another story, where silence itself becomes the teacher. Our next tale leads us to a quiet pavilion, where the sound of rain reveals a deeper understanding. In the heart of an ancient temple complex, where stone paths wound between meditation halls and flowering gardens, lived a silent abbess whose presence embodied the stillness seekers longed to know. Her temple, built centuries before, had sheltered generations of practitioners. Its worn wooden floors and darkened beams held the accumulated calm of devoted lives. Among the residents was a young student who had arrived months earlier with sincere dedication and burning determination. Day after day, he sat rigidly on his cushion, jaw tight, breath forced, striving toward the enlightenment he believed lay just beyond his restless thoughts. Yet instead of peace, his mind grew louder. Thoughts surged in endless waves. Conversations replayed. Doubts multiplied. Self-criticism darkened his inner sky. The harder he tried to silence his mind, the more turbulent it became, like trying to still water by pressing upon it. One evening, as twilight settled behind the temple roofs, the student approached the abbess. She sat quietly in the library, her stillness blending with the dusk itself. Bowing deeply, his voice strained with exhaustion, he confessed his struggle. "Revered teacher," he said softly, "I cannot find the silence you speak of. I try to quiet my mind, but the thoughts swarm endlessly. I focus on my breath, yet I am soon lost again. I search for stillness, but find only more noise. How can I know peace when my mind refuses to obey?" The abbess looked upon him with eyes free of judgment, filled only with understanding. She had witnessed this same striving many times before, the grasping that creates more unrest. Without a word, she rose and motioned for him to follow. They passed through quiet halls, glowing lamps, and seated practitioners until they reached a small open pavilion overlooking the garden. Cushions rested on woven mats. Wooden pillars framed ancient pines and carefully raked gravel. As they sat, the first drops of rain began to fall. At first, the sound was light, individual drops touching the tiled roof. Soon, it became a steady rhythm, flowing together into a single living presence. They sat in silence as the rain continued. The student's thoughts rushed at first, questioning, resisting, analyzing. But slowly, almost unnoticed, the gentle consistency of the rain began to carry his awareness. The sound was simple, yet endlessly varied. Drops on leaves, on stone, on wood. Wind shifting its tone. Water gathering and falling from the eaves. His thoughts did not disappear, but they softened. They became distant murmurs beneath a vast natural music. His breath deepened without effort. His shoulders released. A quiet peace arose, not something achieved, not something forced, but rather as something he had gently uncovered, something that had always been present, quietly waiting beneath the movement of his thoughts. When the rain slowly eased, shifting from a steady rhythm to scattered droplets, the silence that followed felt full and alive, not empty. It was a silence that breathed. The abbess turned toward him with a soft smile and spoke for the first time that evening. "Did you hear it?" she asked, her voice no louder than a breath. The student paused, believing she was referring to the stillness that had arisen within him. "The silence?" he asked, hope trembling in his words. "No," she replied with tender clarity. "The rain." The Buddha once observed, "Thousands of candles can be lit from a single flame, and the flame is not diminished. Happiness does not lessen when it is shared." This story reveals a deep truth about awareness and our relationship with the sounds of life, both outside us and within. What we often call silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of awareness vast enough to hold all sound without resistance. The student's struggle reflects a common misunderstanding of meditation. We imagine the goal is to eliminate thought, to create a quiet void. Yet the true invitation is to change our relationship with thinking itself. Why does resting in awareness feel so difficult? Zen teachings point gently to our habit of control. We approach meditation as a task to complete, a problem to solve through effort and will. But awareness is not an object to be seized. It is more like open sky. The more we reach for it, the more it seems to slip away. Another misunderstanding lies in how we define distraction. The student believed his thoughts were obstacles, enemies to overcome. Yet the abbess revealed that sounds, whether rain falling on tile or thoughts arising in the mind, are not the problem. The question is not how to remove them, but how to meet them. Consider your own experience. How often have you grown frustrated because thoughts continued during meditation? The rain teaches a different way. Instead of struggling against experience, we can rest in the awareness that naturally contains it all. Zen practice speaks of choiceless awareness, not passive resignation, but alert openness. A quality of presence that welcomes whatever arises without judgment. Just as the pavilion sheltered the abbess and the student while allowing the rain to be heard, awareness offers a spacious home for every experience. The Buddha taught, peace comes from within. Do not seek it outside yourself. The student had been searching for peace in a future moment where thoughts no longer appeared. The abbess showed him that peace was already present, not as the opposite of thought, but as the open field in which thoughts come and go. Rain teaches rhythm. It does not force itself to fall. It does not struggle to sound. It simply expresses its nature. Thoughts and emotions arise the same way. Suffering comes not from their presence, but from our resistance to their flow. Zen teacher Alan Watts once said, "You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at itself." The student discovered that instead of trying to manufacture silence, he could notice the silence that was already listening. Listening to rain, listening to thought. This listening awareness did not need to be created. It only needed to be recognized and trusted. The story also reveals the power of skillful guidance. The abbess offered no technique, no explanation. She simply created the conditions where insight could appear naturally. Some teachings cannot be spoken. They must be lived. Tonight, as you rest with whatever sounds surround you, rain, wind, distant traffic, or the quiet movement of your own mind, can you try this gentle experiment? Instead of seeking silence, notice what is already aware of sound. The Buddha taught that the sky makes no distinction between east and west. Humans create divisions and believe them to be real. The difference between silence and sound, between peace and thought, exists mostly in concept. When this is seen clearly, peace reveals itself as something that was never lost. Now, we turn to a story that speaks of impermanence, the tender truth that touches all beings. As our journey through Zen wisdom continues, we arrive at Hashin's final lesson. High in the mountains, where morning mist clung to ancient pines and temple bells marked the slow rhythm of contemplative life, lived a Zen master whose name had become synonymous with compassion and insight. Master Hashin had guided students for over 40 years, his presence woven into the monastery like its stone walls and quiet gardens. Now, in the final days of his life, Hashin lay on a simple mat in his small room, surrounded by disciples who had found in him not only a teacher, but a living expression of the Buddha's path. The room was filled with deep stillness, softened by the quiet sorrow resting in each heart. The disciples gathered close, some seated in meditation, others kneeling near their teacher. Their faces reflected gratitude, love, and the ache of impending loss. The teacher who had guided them through doubt and insight, discipline and awakening, was preparing to leave. As afternoon light filtered through paper screens, casting slow-moving shadows, the disciples faced the truth they had long known but never felt ready to meet. Their teacher, who seemed as enduring as the mountains, was showing them impermanence in its most intimate form. One senior monk leaned close, tears flowing freely. "Master," he whispered, "you are leaving us and our hearts are heavy. We have been blessed beyond measure by your guidance. As you prepare to depart, please share with us your final teaching. What wisdom can help us continue when you are gone?" The others leaned forward, hoping for one last transmission, a final light to guide their steps. Hashin's breath had grown shallow, yet at their request, he slowly opened his eyes. They were the same eyes that had smiled with humor during teachings, that had held compassion during confusion, that had shone with joy at realization. Now, those eyes looked upon each face with infinite tenderness and deep peace. "Come closer," he said softly. They moved nearer, forming a quiet circle. Hands rested gently on his blanket. The room seemed to listen. With great effort, gathering his remaining strength, Hashin spoke. "This world," he said slowly, pausing between breaths, "is like a dream in the night, like a bubble on a stream, like a flash of lightning in summer clouds, like a flickering lamp, like a phantom that appears and vanishes, like a shadow without substance." With those words, he closed his eyes and passed peacefully, so serenely that death itself became a teaching. His face remained calm, luminous, as if he had simply stepped into another room. The disciples sat in the silence that followed, and something unexpected occurred. The grief that had seemed unbearable softened, dissolving into a deep understanding born from his final words. They realized his last lesson was not about loss, but about the exquisite, fleeting beauty of existence itself. Ancient Buddhist wisdom tells us, all conditioned things are impermanent. Work diligently for your awakening. These were the Buddha's own final words, echoing the truth Hashin left behind, that the deepest teachings are not about what we hold, but about what we learn to release with grace. And as this understanding settles gently within you, allow your body to rest, allow your breath to soften, and let the quiet wisdom of impermanence carry you slowly toward sleep. Why does the truth of impermanence feel so hard for the human heart to welcome? In Zen understanding, it is not change itself that gives rise to suffering, but our quiet refusal to allow it. We unconsciously build our sense of safety upon the belief that life should stay the same, that those we cherish should never leave, that familiar conditions should continue to comfort us without interruption. Turn gently inward and observe your own relationship with change and loss. How much unease arises from trying to hold still what is meant to move? How often do we attempt to make lasting what is, by its nature, fleeting? We cling to people, to objects, to memories, to moments of joy, and even to calm states of mind, as though tightening our grip could stop time itself. Yet the final teaching of Master Hazen quietly reminds us that this very grasping is what creates the pain we seek to escape. The images he offered were drawn from ancient Buddhist verse, yet they speak directly to the rhythm of modern life. See how clearly they reflect your own experience. Thoughts rise and dissolve like images in a dream. Emotions appear and vanish like foam upon flowing water. Moments of insight arrive like brief flashes of lightning, illuminating understanding for an instant before gently fading into something new. Even what seems most solid, our work, our homes, our bodies, resembles passing shadows more than fixed forms. They serve their purpose for a time, yet remain subject to the same unchanging law of transformation. This teaching is not meant to darken the heart. It is meant to free it. When impermanence is truly understood, we stop demanding eternal fulfillment from temporary conditions. In Zen practice, we learn to appreciate without clinging. We allow ourselves to fully meet life, to participate with sincerity and presence, while holding each experience lightly, knowing it will naturally shift and change. The disciples' sorrow did not dissolve because love disappeared. It softened because understanding deepened. They realized that love itself was not bound to a single form. The Buddha taught, just as a mother protects her only child with her life, so should one cultivate boundless love for all beings. This boundless love includes acceptance of the great cycles, arrival and departure, birth and passing, meeting and separation, that shape all existence. When we resist these rhythms, suffering arises. When we move in harmony with them, peace unfolds. Consider how Hazen met his own passing. He did not struggle against it, nor turn away in fear. Instead, he used even that final breath as a teaching, offering his students one last expression of wisdom. His quiet departure became a living lesson in how to meet change with dignity and calm awareness. This does not mean grief should be denied. The disciples' tears were natural. Yet their sorrow transformed when they saw that what they truly loved, wisdom, kindness, presence, could not be lost with the body. These qualities had already taken root within them. Tonight, as you reflect on the people and moments you treasure most, can you hold them with tenderness and ease at the same time? Can you honor their beauty precisely because they are not permanent? Like morning dew that makes the garden shimmer before disappearing in the warmth of the sun, perhaps it is transience itself that gives life its glow. As the Buddha taught, among all things, the most precious is this very moment. Do not allow even one to pass without awareness of its worth. In understanding impermanence, we do not lose what we love. We learn how to love more completely, knowing that now is the only moment where love can be fully expressed. Let us continue our journey into a story that explores the nature of emotion and the wisdom of original awareness. This is the story of Bankai and the challenging priest. During the summer teaching season at Master Bankai's temple, seekers arrived from distant villages and towns to hear him speak about what he called the unborn mind. The courtyard would fill with monks in earth-colored robes, lay people in simple garments, travelers pausing their journeys, and scholars curious about Bankai's unconventional Zen approach. His words carried a rare simplicity and clarity, reaching listeners regardless of background or learning. Bankai taught unlike many masters of his time. He did not rely on riddles or elaborate rituals. Instead, he spoke plainly about the natural awareness that exists before thought arises, before emotion shapes perception, before the mind weaves stories that often become suffering. He called this awareness the unborn mind because it was never created and therefore could never be destroyed. On one quiet afternoon, the courtyard rested in attentive stillness as Bankai spoke of the effortless presence of original awareness. There is no need to create Buddha nature, he said gently. It is already here. When you hear these words, when light moves through the trees, when breath enters and leaves the body, the awareness that knows these experiences is itself Buddha nature. Suddenly, from within the crowd, a priest from another sect stood up sharply. He was known for his love of debate and his habit of confronting teachers outside his tradition. His face flushed with resistance, his stance rigid, prepared not to listen but to argue. Master Bankai, he called out loudly, if the original mind is already perfect as you claim, why do anger and jealousy arise within me? Why do selfish thoughts appear? Why do I act in ways I later regret? If I were truly born a Buddha, such emotions would not exist. Your teaching cannot be correct. The crowd stirred. Many had silently wondered the same thing. If our nature is pure, why is the heart so often troubled? All eyes turned toward Bankai. He met the priest's gaze without irritation, without defense. His expression held warmth and genuine curiosity. He smiled as though receiving a precious offering. That is a very good question, Bankai replied calmly. Please come and stand here beside me, so we may look into this together. Everyone here can benefit from exploring what you have raised. And the courtyard grew still once more. As the priest began moving forward through the tightly gathered listeners, the crowd shifted slowly to allow his passage. Cushions were nudged aside, robes brushed against one another, and quiet sighs rose as people adjusted their seats. Some feet were accidentally stepped on, and a few murmurs of discomfort rippled softly through the courtyard. With each step, the priest felt his agitation growing. He bumped shoulders, whispered apologies, and sensed the weight of many eyes following his progress. What had begun as firm conviction now felt tangled with irritation, self-consciousness, and unease. Bankai, meanwhile, continued speaking as though nothing at all had changed. His voice flowed steadily, calm and unbroken, addressing those who remained seated before him. "This simple awareness that hears these words," he said gently, "does not strain or analyze. It does not argue or compare. It simply receives what appears." He invited the listeners to notice how effortlessly awareness recognizes sound from silence, birdsong from human speech, warm sunlight from cool shadow. By the time the priest finally reached the front, his face had grown flushed, not only from exertion but from rising discomfort. His breath came heavy, his robes slightly disordered, and a faint embarrassment lingered within him. The sharp edge of his earlier challenge had dulled, replaced by fatigue and awkward self-awareness. Bankai paused and turned toward him, offering the same open smile as before. The contrast was unmistakable. One stood tense and unsettled, the other rested easily in stillness. "Ah, you have arrived," Bankai said softly. "You were speaking of anger and troubled emotions. Please show me this anger now. Where is it?" The priest hesitated. He turned his attention inward, expecting to meet the heat that had driven him forward. Yet he found nothing of the sort. The fire had cooled. In its place was only breath, a beating heart, and a faint trace of embarrassment. "Well," he admitted quietly, "it is not here at this moment." Bankai's smile deepened, his eyes bright with gentle clarity. "How curious," he said. "This anger you feared so greatly, it arrives without invitation and leaves without permission. It visits and departs on its own. But you," he continued, "the one who noticed its arrival and its departure, you remained the whole time." The priest stood silent, something subtle beginning to loosen within him. "When anger comes," Bankai asked, "do you become the anger, or are you the one who knows it has arrived?" The priest opened his mouth, then closed it again. No argument appeared, only recognition, quiet and unfamiliar. "The emotions you described," Bankai went on gently, "are like clouds crossing the sky. They form, they move, they dissolve. Yet the sky itself is never altered. You are not the passing clouds. You are the open sky that allows them to appear." A long stillness followed. Then the priest bowed deeply, not out of obligation, but from understanding. The Buddha once said, "You are not punished for your anger, you are punished by it." This teaching points to a simple truth. Emotions themselves are natural. Suffering arises when we believe they define who we are. What we call emotional struggle is often a case of mistaken identity. We say, "I am angry," instead of noticing, anger is present. From an early age, we learn to bind experience to identity. This habit quietly shapes our suffering. Notice your own experience. How easily the mind becomes lost inside emotion, believing it to be solid, permanent, personal. Yet, as the priest discovered, even strong feelings shift when met with simple awareness. Zen practice does not suppress emotion. It invites transparency. We feel fully, yet remain spacious. We learn to move with emotion instead of being carried by it. As the Buddha taught, nothing harms us more than unguarded thought. When we identify completely with feeling, we rise and fall with every wave. When we recognize emotion as movement within awareness, balance remains. Bankai did not debate the priest. He did not explain or persuade. He allowed direct seeing to occur. Much suffering comes from holding on to states already changing or resisting what is already passing. Emotions are visitors. When one knocks, we need not deny entry, nor rearrange our entire home. We can greet it, listen quietly, and allow it to leave when it is ready. The priest's argumentative nature softened when its foundation dissolved. Clarity ended the conflict. Often peace arrives not through winning arguments, but through seeing more clearly. Tonight, as feelings arise, can you rest as the one who knows them? Can you be the host, not the guest? As the Buddha taught, 3 things matter in the end: how we live, how we love, and how gently we let go. Letting go includes releasing identity with passing emotion, discovering peace not by eliminating feeling, but by understanding its true place. And now, we continue with another Zen story, one that speaks of habit and forgetting. This is the story of the monastery cat. In a quiet mountain monastery, monks gathered each evening for meditation as dusk settled across the peaks. Generations had maintained this practice. Yet the temple was also home to a loud and restless cat. Each night, the cat wandered into the hall, meowing, knocking bowls aside, testing patience. Attempts to ignore him failed. Gentle persuasion failed. The cat always returned at the most delicate moment. Eventually, the teacher instructed the monks to gently secure the cat in a corner before meditation began. Peace returned. Years passed. The practice continued, and no one questioned why the cat was tied. The monks continued to deepen their meditation, and the cat appeared calm enough in his gentle restraint during the evening hours. What had once been a temporary adjustment slowly settled into routine. Soon, no one remembered a time when things had been done differently. When the elderly teacher eventually passed away, the monks faithfully preserved every practice he had established. Among them was the evening tying of the cat. It had come from their master, and therefore it must carry meaning. No one questioned whether the reason still existed. The action itself had become the reason. Years later, the original cat also completed his life and passed quietly from the monastery. Yet the monks, now fully convinced that a restrained cat was essential to proper meditation, felt a new urgency arise. They searched carefully until another cat was found. The tradition continued without pause. Generations of monks followed. Each was taught by those before them that tying the cat was an indispensable part of the evening practice. Why? It was simply the way things were done. Centuries passed. Scholars emerged who studied the monastery's traditions with great seriousness. They wrote long texts exploring the spiritual symbolism of the restrained cat. Some claimed it represented the taming of the restless mind. Others believed it created sacred balance within the hall. Elaborate interpretations unfolded, all layered upon an act that had once been nothing more than practical necessity. The Buddha taught, "Do not believe something simply because it is tradition, or because it has been repeated for many generations." This story gently reveals how useful actions can harden into empty rituals when their original purpose is forgotten. Why do we continue practices long after their usefulness has faded, simply because they feel familiar? Zen does not reject form, but it asks us to look beyond it, to understand the spirit within the form, rather than clinging to the form itself. The teacher tied the cat only to protect the stillness of meditation. Nothing more. Yet over time, the solution became sacred, the sacred became unquestioned, and the unquestioned became doctrine. Consider your own life. How many routines do you follow not because they serve you now, but because they once did? The monastery cat represents all the habits we preserve out of momentum rather than wisdom. This applies not only to spiritual life, but to family traditions, workplace procedures, and cultural expectations. What begins as skillful response can quietly become rigid obligation. In Zen, we speak of the finger and the moon. The finger points. The moon illuminates. Confusing the two leads us astray. The cat was never the point. Peaceful meditation was. The Buddha said, "My teaching is a raft used to cross the river, not something to carry once you have arrived." When we turn rafts into monuments, we forget why we began the journey. Look gently at the practices you hold. Which ones still serve awakening? Which have become echoes of the past? To honor wisdom is not to freeze it, but to keep it alive. The scholars who wrote of the cat were not misguided by intention. They believed they were preserving truth, yet their understanding rested upon a foundation they had never examined. Tonight, as you reflect on your own routines, can you remember the original problem they once solved? Can you allow forms to change while honoring their deeper purpose? As the Buddha observed, do not accept anything simply because you were told. But when something is found to be reasonable, kind, and beneficial to all, then live by it. True maturity in practice means continual seeing, not blind repetition. And now, we turn to another gentle story, one that explores appearance and understanding, illumination and awareness. This is the tale of the blind man and his lantern. One quiet evening, as darkness settled over the village like a soft blanket, a blind man prepared to return home after spending the day with a close friend. They had shared tea, conversation, and the ease that grows between those who know one another well. As night deepened, the blind man reached for his walking stick and wrapped his cloak against the cool air. His friend looked out at the unlit streets and felt concern. "Please," he said gently, "take my lantern with you. The roads are dark tonight, and there are many obstacles." The blind man smiled. "Why would I need a lantern?" he asked softly. "You know I cannot see. My feet already know the way." His friend paused, then replied, "Perhaps the light is not for you, but for others, so they may see you and not collide with you in the dark." The blind man considered this and nodded. "Yes," he said, "that makes sense." He accepted the lantern with gratitude. It was simple and beautiful, made of rice paper stretched over bamboo, a small flame resting safely inside. And with quiet steps, he began his walk into the night. His friend lit the candle, and a soft golden glow spread across the earth near the blind man's feet. Though his eyes could not perceive the light, he felt its warmth and trusted that others would see him clearly from afar. With gratitude, he stepped into the night. The lantern moved gently beside him, swaying in rhythm with his familiar steps. He felt reassured, believing he was acting with care, protecting both himself and those who might cross his path. Yet after only a short distance, there came a sudden impact. Another traveler collided directly with him. The jolt was unexpected. Both men staggered, and the lantern swung sharply, nearly slipping from the blind man's hand. "Why don't you watch where you are going?" The blind man called out, startled and upset, steadying himself and adjusting his robe. "Can you not see this lantern? I carry it so others will not strike me." The other traveler paused, then looked closely at the lantern. A quiet laugh escaped his lips, not mocking, but gently surprised. "My friend," he said softly, "why do you not light the candle? Your lantern is dark." The blind man reached out, his fingers tracing the bamboo frame. And then he understood. The flame had gone out soon after he left. Unaware, he had been walking through darkness, holding a form he believed to be light, yet offering no illumination at all. The Buddha once said, "Thousands of candles may be lit from one flame, and the flame is not diminished." Joy does not lessen when shared. This story reveals a quiet truth. There is a difference between carrying the vessel of wisdom and carrying wisdom itself. How often do we confuse the outer shape of understanding with understanding? Zen teaches that we easily attach to symbols, words we have learned, teachings we repeat, ideas we can explain, while the living flame of awareness remains unlit within us. The blind man's experience is familiar to many who walk a spiritual path. We collect teachings, surround ourselves with practice, and assume that possession means illumination. But without direct experience, we may still move through darkness while believing we carry light. Reflect gently on your own understanding. Which insights are lived? Which are only carried? The difference often becomes clear when life brings unexpected collisions, moments when ideas are tested by real conditions. In Zen, there is a distinction between knowing about and knowing directly. You may read endlessly about the taste of fruit, yet until you bite into it, the knowledge remains distant. In the same way, we can speak of peace, of compassion, of clarity, without embodying them. The blind man meant no harm. His intention was kind. But intention alone could not replace the simple necessity of a flame. This is the heart of practice, not appearing wise, not wishing for wisdom, but cultivating the living experience that makes wisdom real. Zen Master Dogen taught, "To study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self." The lantern represents our identity, the image of ourselves as knowledgeable, as spiritual, as awakened. When protecting this image becomes central, the candle is forgotten. The traveler who pointed out the darkness was not unkind. Sometimes, we need another's eyes to reveal that our flame has gone out. This is not failure. It is a moment of clarity. Notice when you may be carrying an unlit lantern, when advice is offered before it is embodied, when peace is spoken while the heart remains restless. These moments are invitations, not judgments. The beauty of this teaching is that realizing the darkness is the beginning of light. When we notice the absence of flame, we can pause, relight the candle, and walk on with true illumination. The lantern itself is not useless. It only waits for what gives it life. In our work, our relationships, our inner practice, this pattern repeats. Outer forms grow strong, while inner presence fades. The teacher who no longer listens. The guide who has stopped learning. The practitioner who clings to routine without awareness. All carry lanterns. Some forget the flame. The Buddha taught, "Better than 1,000 empty words is one word that brings peace." One moment of true presence outshines years of borrowed understanding. And so, as you rest here tonight, allow the lantern of the mind to soften. Attend gently to the quiet flame within. Let it glow without effort, and walk on, slowly, warmly, in real light. Even the smallest flame, when truly burning, offers guidance that the most elegant empty lantern never can. Zen practice quietly invites us, again and again, to look honestly at our own light. Is the candle truly lit, Or are we only remembering when it once was? Are our words coming from lived experience or from stories stored in memory? Are our actions rooted in present awareness or moving automatically through habit? This is not a demand for perfection. Candles naturally go out. That is their nature. A breeze passes. The wax thins. The flame flickers, dims, and fades. Practice is not preventing this from happening. Practice is noticing when it has happened and gently relighting the flame without pretending it never went out. Tonight, as you rest with these stories, you may reflect softly on the roles you play, the insight you believe you carry. Which lanterns in your life are warm with light, and which are being carried only by appearance? Can you notice the dark lanterns without judgment or embarrassment, seeing them simply as invitations to rekindle true understanding? The Buddha reminded us that three things cannot remain hidden for long: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Sooner or later, an unlit lantern reveals itself through collision with reality. Rather than waiting for such moments, we may choose to tend the inner flame with care, knowing that when it burns clearly, it not only guides our own steps but quietly helps others find their way as well. And so, we continue our journey into another Zen teaching, one that explores suffering and the space that holds it. This is the story of the salt and the lake. In a peaceful monastery among rolling hills, there lived an elderly master known for his patience and deep kindness. Among his students was a young apprentice whose heart had grown heavy with complaint. Each morning he arrived burdened with grievances. "Master," he would say, "life is so difficult. Yesterday, noise disturbed my meditation. Today, my body aches on the hard floor. When will this suffering end?" His words carried the weight of someone who had gathered every small discomfort until it felt unbearable. The master listened quietly day after day, but he sensed that explanations alone would not shift his students' understanding. One clear morning, as sunlight spilled gently into their dwelling, the master made a simple request. "Please," he said kindly, "bring me a handful of salt from the kitchen." The apprentice returned with coarse white crystals resting in his cupped palms. The master placed a small glass of water before him. "Put the salt into this glass and drink it." The apprentice hesitated. "That seems like too much salt for so little water." "Trust," the master replied softly. The salt dissolved into the glass, cloudy and dense. The apprentice drank and immediately grimaced. "How does it taste?" the master asked. "Terribly bitter," the apprentice replied. "Almost unbearable." The master nodded. "Good. Now come with me." Together, they walked in silence until they reached a wide mountain lake. The water lay still, reflecting sky and clouds so perfectly that horizon disappeared. "Now," the master said, "place the same salt into the lake." The apprentice scattered the crystals, watching them vanish without a trace. "Drink," the master instructed. The apprentice cupped the water in his hands. It was cool, clear, refreshing. "How does it taste?" "Pure," the apprentice answered, surprised. "Do you taste the salt?" He paused, attentive. "No," he said quietly. The master sat beside him and took his hands with gentle warmth. "My student," he said, "the pain of life is like salt. No more, no less. But the bitterness you experience depends on the container that holds it. When pain arises, you cannot always remove it, but you can choose the space you give it. You may be a small glass where every grain overwhelms, Or you may become a vast lake where the same salt dissolves harmlessly. Then the master smiled softly. Stop being a glass. Become a lake. The Buddha taught, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. This teaching reveals something essential. Our awareness is not fixed in size. It can shrink until discomfort fills everything, or it can widen until even difficulty finds room to breathe. Why do we so often remain the glass? We narrow our focus around pain. We tell stories that multiply it. We compare reality to how we believe life should be. The lake does not deny pain. It simply does not amplify it. From spacious awareness, we respond with creativity instead of resistance. As Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught, because impermanence exists, everything is possible. From the lake perspective, we remember that all experiences arise and pass within awareness itself. Today's struggle becomes tomorrow's memory. We grow into lakes through practice. Meditation widens presence. Gratitude reveals what remains unseen. Compassion connects our pain to the shared human condition. Tonight, notice your challenges gently. Can you feel the difference between glass awareness and lake awareness? The Buddha said, if you wish to know your mind, sit and observe it. Clarity is not the absence of salt, but the space to hold it wisely. In becoming lakes, pain becomes a doorway to understanding and freedom. And now we turn to another Zen teaching, one that explores the limits of conceptual knowing and the depth of true seeing. This is the story of 3 strikes and deeper vision. In the mountain monastery where the 6th patriarch, Huineng taught, students traveled from distant regions to study with him. Among them was a gifted young monk named Xinhui, renowned for his sharp intellect and probing questions. Unlike many who approached with humility, Xinhui often challenged the master with refined philosophical inquiry. One afternoon, as sunlight filled the hall and the monastery moved quietly around them, Xinhui approached Huineng. The patriarch sat motionless, breath soft, presence complete. Bowing respectfully, Xinhui asked with confidence, "When you sit in meditation, do you see or not?" He believed this a profound question. Did awakening involve special vision, or a state beyond seeing altogether? Without warning, the patriarch lifted his teaching stick and struck Xinhui 3 times. The blows were sharp, not cruel, but unmistakable. Then calmly the master asked, "When I struck you, did it hurt or not?" Xinhui rubbed his shoulders, startled. The pain was clear, yet something deeper stirred. "It both hurts and does not hurt," he replied carefully, sensing that the answer lay beyond ordinary thought. First is our identification with wounds. We quietly turn pain into a story of who we are, believing that without it we might somehow disappear. Second is fear. We fear that letting go means excusing what happened or forgetting lessons learned. Third is habit. Carrying the weight has become so familiar that we no longer remember how it feels to walk unburdened. Zen wisdom gently reminds us that forgiveness is not denial. It is release. It is the understanding that clinging to pain does not protect us, it imprisons us. In Buddhist practice, the past is understood as a mental formation arising in the present moment. Memories appear, sensations arise, emotions follow, and then they pass away. The suffering comes when we grasp these passing experiences and solidify them into identity. This is my pain. This is my story. This is who I am. But the Buddha taught that there is no fixed self to carry these burdens. There is only awareness in which they arise. The empty backpack is heavy only because the mind fills it. When awareness softens, when compassion replaces resistance, the weight naturally dissolves. This is not an act of force. You do not throw the backpack away. You simply look inside with honesty and kindness. And in that scene, the burden loosens. Tonight, as your body rests and your breath slows, you may notice old memories drifting through the mind like clouds across a quiet sky. There is no need to push them away. There is no need to follow them. Simply notice their texture, their temperature, their movement. Ask gently, without judgment, what am I still carrying that no longer serves me? And can I allow it to rest just for now? Zen practice is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering what has always been here beneath the weight. Spaciousness, ease, a natural lightness of being. When the backpack is set down, even briefly, the path becomes clear without effort. Walls turn into openings. Mazes reveal themselves as open fields. The Buddha said, "You do not have to carry the past with you. The past is gone." In this moment, there is only breath, only awareness, only the quiet rhythm of being alive. Nothing else is required. As you continue to rest in this gentle awareness, allow the body to sink deeper into stillness. Let the mind widen like a calm lake at night, holding reflections without disturbance. Thoughts may arise. Feelings may appear. Let them come and go, like ripples fading back into silence. In this way, Zen teaches us not to fight the mind, not to control life, but to see clearly and release naturally. The lantern is lit. The lake is vast. The backpack is empty. And in this quiet understanding, sleep arrives not as an escape, but as a return to wholeness. Rest now in this softness. Nothing to carry, nothing to solve. Just this breath, this moment, and the gentle unfolding of peace. We shape our sense of self around old injuries, quietly believing I am someone who was harmed, instead of recognizing I encountered harm, but I am larger than it. Another reason we cling is our attachment to what feels familiar. Even sorrow and resentment can feel strangely safe because they are known. And then there is confusion about forgiveness, mistaking it for approval of what hurt us, rather than seeing it as liberation from the cage of bitterness. Notice how this unfolds in ordinary moments. A coworker who once overlooked you still ignites anger. A careless remark spoken long ago still echoes in your inner dialogue. Each of these becomes an unseen object tucked into the backpack, silently increasing its weight. As Zen teacher Jack Kornfield gently reminds us, forgiveness is the willingness to stop wishing for a different yesterday. The past cannot be reshaped, but our relationship to it can soften and change. The energy required to keep old resentments alive could instead nourish a life rooted in clarity and ease. The image of floating speaks to the natural lightness that appears when psychological burdens are released. This is not avoidance of pain, but a deep honoring of experience, choosing freedom over familiarity, openness over grievance. Tonight, as the body prepares to rest, you might quietly ask yourself what unseen weight you are still carrying. What memory, what story, what judgment might be ready to be gently set down. As the Buddha taught, you are worthy of your own kindness. The journey toward freedom begins with sincere self-forgiveness and the courage to walk lightly through the changing landscape of life. Now, Let us continue with a teaching about the boundaries of understanding and the quiet power of honesty. This is the story of the Emperor and Master Buddha. The Emperor of Japan, accustomed to receiving clear answers from scholars and ministers, arranged a private meeting with Master Buddha, a Zen teacher widely respected for his depth of realization. The emperor carried a sincere curiosity about spiritual matters, especially questions of life, death, and what lies beyond ordinary perception. Seated in a formal chamber usually reserved for affairs of state, the emperor felt at ease asking what weighed on his mind. Surely a man who had spent decades in meditation would possess insight into the deepest mysteries. With measured authority, the emperor asked, "What happens to an enlightened person after death?" He anticipated a refined explanation, perhaps teachings on rebirth, karma, or subtle realms of existence. Instead, Master Buddha met his gaze calmly and replied, "How should I know?" The emperor was startled. "But you are an enlightened teacher," he insisted. "Surely you understand these things." Buddha answered simply, "Yes, but I am not a dead one." Within this brief exchange lives a profound teaching. True wisdom does not pretend to know what has not been directly experienced. The Buddha himself emphasized honest inquiry over borrowed certainty. Spiritual maturity is marked not by grand claims, but by humility before the unknown. Why do we so often expect spiritual insight to provide answers to every mystery? Zen reminds us to distinguish between ideas and lived knowing. Master Buddha's response was not ignorance, but integrity. He refused speculation, even before great authority. Consider how often we speak with confidence about things we cannot truly know, about the future, about others' inner lives, about outcomes still unfolding. We often prefer certainty over truth. Yet Zen practice invites what is called don't know mind, an open, receptive awareness that does not rush to fill silence with conclusions. This is not confusion, but spacious clarity. A living teacher knows about living. What lies beyond death remains a mystery until it is directly encountered. The Buddha encouraged investigation grounded in experience, not belief accepted on reputation alone. There is great relief in releasing the need to have an opinion about everything. How much tension fades when we allow ourselves to say, "I don't know." The emperor sought answers about death, but wisdom pointed him back to life itself, fully lived, fully present. Tonight, as questions about the future or the unknown arise, can you rest in that same simplicity? Can you allow mystery to remain open without fear? In this gentle not knowing, the mind relaxes and peace deepens. Now, we turn to a story about the subtle line between heaven and hell within the human heart. This is the tale of the samurai and the gates. In feudal Japan, a seasoned warrior sought out the Zen master Hakuin. His armor bore the marks of many battles, and his eyes carried the fatigue of long years of violence. Bowing stiffly, he asked, "Tell me honestly, are heaven and hell real?" Hakuin studied him quietly, then asked, "Who are you to ask such a question?" "I am a samurai," the warrior replied proudly. "I have served my lord without fear." Hakuin laughed sharply. "The protector? You look like a beggar. What master would trust you?" The words pierced deeply. Rage surged through the samurai. His hand moved to his sword. His breath grew sharp, his vision narrow. "And that sword," Hakuin continued calmly, "it is likely too dull to harm anyone." Unable to restrain himself, the samurai drew his blade, anger blazing in his body. In that exact moment, as steel caught the light, Hakuin spoke with sudden stillness and said, "This is hell." "Here," he said softly, "the gates of hell stand open." The words moved through Noiga's fury like a cool wind through fire. In that single breath, he saw himself without illusion, gripped by rage, ready to destroy over injured pride, his vision narrowed, his heart burning. He understood then that hell was not a distant realm awaiting him after death, but a condition of mind he had entered right there. His fingers loosened. The sword grew heavy in his hand. Slowly, with deep respect, Noiga slid the blade back into its sheath and bowed low before the master. The heat of anger dissolved into a quiet wave of gratitude. "Here," Hakuin said gently, his eyes now warm, "the gates of paradise open." Buddha's wisdom reminds us, hatred is never ended by hatred, but only by love. This is the ancient and eternal law. What this story reveals is a simple and startling truth about our inner landscape. Heaven and hell are not faraway destinations. They are experiences born in each moment, shaped by the state of our awareness. When the mind is seized by greed, hatred, or confusion, the world becomes a place of suffering. When the mind is clear, spacious, and kind, that same world becomes peaceful. Why do we so quickly arrive at the gates of hell? Zen points to the three poisons that cloud the heart: craving, aversion, and ignorance. When Noiga's pride was pierced, anger flared instantly, and his reality transformed in seconds. Curiosity collapsed into violence. A quiet meeting became a battlefield. The deeper teaching is that both realms live within us. Paradise and hell are not somewhere we go later. They are ways of being now. Each moment offers a choice between the hell of reaction and the heaven of awareness. Notice how often this happens in your own day. A sharp message arrives, and calm turns into tension. A careless gesture on the road, and ease contracts into irritation. A single remark, and contentment dissolves into self-defense. Zen practice trains us to recognize these turning points. Like Noiga pausing with his sword half drawn, we learn to see the instant before we cross the threshold. That seeing itself is the key. Zen master Huangwa taught, "The foolish reject what they see. The wise reject what they think." When we are caught in reaction, we reject the living moment in favor of our thoughts about it. Hakuin's harsh words were not cruelty, but compassion. By awakening Noiga's anger, he revealed the truth directly. Hell is entered by our own grasping. This teaching invites gentle inquiry. What words, what situations, pull you toward hell most quickly? Feeling unseen, misunderstood, disrespected? Each trigger offers the same choice Noiga faced. Will you draw the sword of reaction, or pause and recognize the teaching? Tonight, if irritation arises, can you remember this moment? Can you notice the gate before you step through it? As the Buddha taught, what we repeatedly think and feel, we become. In every breath, we are either opening the gates of hell through unconscious reaction, or opening the gates of paradise through mindful presence. And now, as our journey continues, let us turn to a story about contentment and desire. This is the tale of the stonecutter. High in the mountain villages lived a humble stonecutter who unknowingly held the secret of happiness. Each morning before sunrise, he walked the winding paths to the quarry, his tools resting easily across his shoulders. As he worked, His voice carried old mountain songs into the valleys below. By the world's standards he had little. A small hut, simple meals, worn clothes, but his heart wanted nothing more. The steady rhythm of labor, the vast sky, the honest weight of stone in his hands, his life felt whole. One day, he was summoned to carve stones for the mansion of a wealthy noble. As he approached the estate, his breath caught. Towering columns gleamed in the sun. Gardens unfolded in perfect balance. For the first time, a sharp desire pierced his quiet contentment. If only I were rich, he sighed. Then I would not labor as I do. From the stones came a whisper, calm and unseen. Your wish is granted. That evening, his humble hut had become a grand mansion. Delighted, he set aside his tools and embraced a life of comfort. Yet on a sweltering afternoon, he looked out and saw the king's procession pass below. The king sat shaded and serene, lifted above the heat. If only I were king, he thought, and in an instant, he reclined on silken cushions within the royal carriage. But even there, the sun pressed through thick walls, relentless and heavy. Wait a moment, he said, pulling his hand away. This is impossible. The forest grew very still as doubt crept quietly into his heart. He looked at the woman, at the house, at the servants waiting patiently nearby. His mind, long trained in worry, began to search for danger. Things like this do not happen, he thought. There must be a trick. There must be a price. A chill passed through him. This is too good, he whispered. Perhaps this tree is cursed. Perhaps demons are playing with my mind, giving me pleasure only to take everything away. As the thought settled, fear took root. His breath became shallow. His eyes darted toward the shadows between the trees. Almost immediately, the radiant woman faded like mist in morning light. The servants vanished. The house dissolved into empty air. The forest returned to its ordinary form, silent and unchanged. The man stood alone, leaning against the tree, his heart pounding. Of course, he muttered bitterly. I knew it couldn't be real. He walked away slowly, shoulders once again heavy, never realizing that the tree he had leaned against was known as the wishing tree. Buddha's wisdom reminds us, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. This story reveals a gentle but profound truth. The same mind that creates joy can also undo it. The same thoughts that open doors can close them just as easily. The wishing tree does not judge. It does not choose which wishes to grant. It simply reflects the state of mind brought before it. When the man wished from simple need, his wishes unfolded naturally. When fear and doubt arose, the mind turned against itself, and the gifts vanished. Zen teaches that our experience of life functions in much the same way. Faith and doubt are not abstract ideas. They are forces shaping perception moment by moment. When trust is present, the world feels supportive. When suspicion dominates, even abundance feels unsafe. Why do we so quickly doubt what is good? Often because suffering has trained the mind to expect loss. We learn to protect ourselves by questioning joy, by assuming it will be taken away. Yet this very habit becomes the source of continued scarcity. The wishing tree is not magic. It is a mirror. It reflects the quiet power of belief. Not belief in fantasies, but trust in the present moment. Trust that life can meet us when we stop fighting it. Consider how this appears in your own experience. When ease arises, does the mind tighten? When happiness visits, does another voice whisper, "Don't get used to this"? These thoughts are not enemies. They are old guardians trying to keep you safe. But when followed blindly, they dissolve what they seek to protect. Zen practice invites us to notice these thoughts without obeying them, to rest beneath the wishing tree of awareness without demanding certainty, to allow good moments to be good without rushing to predict their ending. The Buddha taught, doubt is a thorn that wounds the mind. This does not mean suppressing questions, but seeing when doubt becomes habit rather than wisdom. Tonight, as you rest, imagine leaning gently against the wishing tree. Not wishing for grand miracles, but simply allowing breath to flow, body to soften, mind to settle. Notice how safety arises not from control, but from presence. When fear whispers, can you let it pass like a cloud? When ease appears, can you remain with it just as it is? The wishing tree of the present moment offers what is needed, not according to desire, but according to openness. As sleep approaches, remember this quiet teaching. Life unfolds according to the quality of mind that meets it. When the heart is open, the world responds in kind. And when doubt loosens its grip, even ordinary moments reveal themselves as enough. Now let the forest grow dim. Let the path fade softly. There is nothing more to wish for tonight. Only rest beneath the tree of awareness, where nothing needs to appear and nothing needs to disappear. This is absurd, he whispered to himself. Fortune doesn't visit people like me. I don't deserve this. It can't be real. And as doubt took shape in his voice, the world around him began to soften and dissolve. The woman's gentle gaze faded first, like mist touched by morning light. The servants vanished quietly, then the graceful house lost its form, and finally even the warmth of the meal disappeared. In a single breath, he was alone once more, resting against an unremarkable tree, holding only the familiar weight of his worries. He sighed, nodding to himself as if confirming an old belief. I knew it, he muttered and turned away, walking back into the forest. Almost immediately, his mind returned to its well-worn paths of concern and dissatisfaction, replaying the same stories it had always known. The Buddha taught that we are shaped by our thoughts. What we think, we become. From thought arises experience, and from belief, an entire world takes form. At the center of this teaching lies a quiet truth. Belief creates, while doubt quietly unravels. Not the doubt that seeks understanding, but the doubt that denies worthiness. Why is it that when goodness appears, we question it? Why do we accept hardship so easily, yet hesitate when life offers ease? Zen teachings remind us that the mind is deeply conditioned. We become attached to our struggles, so familiar with difficulty that peace feels unfamiliar. Abundance can feel unsettling when we have identified ourselves with lack for too long. Think gently about your own day. How often kindness arrives unannounced, beauty reveals itself briefly, or opportunity stands quietly before you? And how often does the mind dismiss these moments as coincidence, mistake, or illusion? Too good to be true, it whispers. In doing so, we unknowingly turn away from what we have been seeking. The wishing tree symbolizes a universe that responds, not to spoken desire, but to silent belief. It reflects back what we think we deserve, what we believe is possible. When we meet life with openness, unseen doors seem to appear. When we meet it with suspicion, those same doors quietly close. The man beneath the tree lacked nothing. Yet his belief in limitation outweighed the evidence before him. His doubt was stronger than his experience. And this is the quiet sorrow of self-doubt. It convinces us to abandon our own answers. A Zen master once said, "You are complete just as you are, and still, you continue to grow." This gentle paradox invites balance. Acceptance without stagnation. Growth without self-rejection. The man could not hold both truths at once. That he was already worthy, and that change was still possible. In our lives today, wishing trees appear in many forms. A sincere connection we mistrust. An opportunity we decline before trying. A moment of happiness we shorten because we fear its end. Each time we choose the comfort of limitation over the uncertainty of possibility, we quietly walk away. The Buddha advised us to question deeply and discover truth for ourselves. But there is a difference between inquiry and self-erasure. Wise doubt loosens illusion. Harmful doubt hardens fear. Zen practice invites gentle awareness. To notice when we dismiss love, joy, or support simply because it conflicts with our old story. To ask, softly, whether we might be more capable, more deserving, more whole than we once believed. As this day comes to rest, reflect without judgment. Were there moments you turned away from your own wishing tree? A compliment brushed aside. A door left unopened. A joy quietly silenced because it felt too fragile to trust. What would it feel like to receive without resistance? The Buddha observed that one candle can light 1,000 others without losing its flame. In the same way, receiving joy does not diminish the world. It expands it. The magic of the wishing tree is not exhausted by generosity. It is fulfilled through it. And our ability to receive grows each time we allow it. Now, let us move gently into another reflection. A story about knowing the path and truly walking it. This is the tale of following the stream. Deep within a vast wilderness, where tall pines reached toward a silent sky, two travelers from the city found themselves lost. What began as a simple journey had drifted far from intention. Confidence replaced preparation, and direction quietly vanished. For a full day and night, they wandered beneath towering trees, uncertainty growing heavier with each step. Every trail looked the same. Every turn led only to more confusion. The familiar world they knew felt impossibly distant. Just as fear began to tighten its grip, they came upon an old hermit seated calmly at the edge of a clearing. His presence was still, rooted, as though he belonged to the land itself. Relief washed over them. "Please," they asked, voices strained, "how do we return home?" The hermit regarded them with eyes shaped by solitude and time. "I could explain," he said softly, "but you would still lose your way." They exchanged uneasy glances. This was not the answer they expected. "What should we do then?" they asked. The hermit smiled gently. "Follow the stream." "I'm sorry," one replied, waiting for something more detailed, more certain. The hermit smiled softly and lifted his hand, pointing toward a narrow stream that murmured gently as it wound its way through the clearing. "Move with the current," he said calmly. "Do you see that water? Simply follow it." Small streams become creeks, creeks join rivers, and rivers eventually pass through villages and towns. Along the way, you will never lack drinking water, and you will find food growing nearby. The advice felt immediately practical to the weary travelers. They knew that water almost always led to human life, and that staying near it increased their chances of survival. The stream was not only a path forward, but a source of nourishment and reassurance. Yet one of the men, touched by something deeper in the hermit's presence, hesitated. "Is this," he asked gently, "what Zen means when it says, 'Go with the flow'?" The hermit paused, as though listening not only to the question, but to the silence around it. "Yes," he said at last, "and no." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving the travelers standing beside the flowing water, holding both clarity and mystery in their minds. The Buddha once taught, "If you understand, things are simply as they are. If you do not understand, things are simply as they are." This teaching reveals how wisdom unfolds in layers. The hermit's guidance worked on more than one level at the same time. On the surface, it was sound advice for surviving in the wilderness. Beneath that, it pointed toward an entire way of living encouraged by Zen practice. Why did the hermit say that giving directions would still leave them lost? Because information alone does not awaken wisdom. Instructions can guide the feet, but they do not train the heart. True understanding grows from learning how to read life itself, to sense patterns, rhythms, and currents that cannot be captured on a map. Wisdom is not memorizing answers, but developing inner orientation. So often in our spiritual searching, we ask for certainty. Tell me exactly what to do. Give me the technique that will end my suffering. Show me the fastest path. This desire is natural, yet incomplete. Genuine guidance does not hand us someone else's conclusions. It teaches us how to listen, how to notice, how to trust what unfolds. Like the stream that needs no instructions to reach the sea, each of us carries a quiet intelligence within. When we stop forcing and start sensing, that wisdom begins to reveal itself. In everyday language, "go with the flow" has come to mean giving up or drifting without care. But the hermit's answer points to something far subtler. True flowing is not passive. It is alignment. It is moving in harmony with compassion, clarity, and reality as it is. When we resist less, effort becomes lighter. When we listen more, action becomes precise. The stream symbolizes the natural order that underlies all existence. When we align with it, life feels less like struggle and more like cooperation. We stop pushing upstream and learn to move with what already supports us. This requires a different kind of intelligence than the one we usually rely on. The travelers wanted step-by-step directions because the thinking mind seeks control. But the wisdom the hermit pointed toward moves moment by moment. It responds rather than plans. This is why contemplative traditions emphasize presence. The stream does not need to imagine the ocean. It simply flows where gravity and terrain guide it now. In the same way, mindfulness allows us to meet each moment freshly without carrying the weight of the entire journey in our thoughts. Tonight, as your own life gently settles, can you sense the quiet currents beneath your concerns? What might happen if you trusted them a little more, while still caring responsibly for what needs attention? The Buddha reminded us that one candle can light countless others without losing its flame. The hermit's words were such a candle, not only guiding the travelers home, but offering a way of meeting life that could serve them again and again. Now, let us turn toward another story. A lesson about recognition and the wisdom hidden in plain sight. This is the tale of the visitor and the holy man. Throughout the countryside, stories spread of a remarkable sage. People said he possessed deep insight and uncommon clarity, that he could answer any question, untangle any problem, and bring peace to even the most troubled heart. According to rumor, he lived alone in a modest dwelling high on a mountain, far removed from the noise and distractions of ordinary life. A man from the valley below had long been burdened by an unresolved struggle. He had searched everywhere for answers, speaking with friends, consulting elders, visiting teachers, yet nothing eased the confusion within him. When he heard of the holy man on the mountain, hope stirred once more. He resolved to make the journey, whatever it required. The path upward was steep and unforgiving. Hour after hour, he climbed beneath the harsh sun. His feet ached. His breath grew shallow. His water grew scarce. Still, he continued. He believed that once he reached the summit, the holy man's wisdom would dissolve his suffering at once. At last, exhausted and covered in dust, he arrived at a simple, weathered house at the mountain's peak. It was plain and humble, exactly as one might expect from someone who had let go of the world. He stepped toward the doorway with a quiet blend of hope and reverence, steadying his breath as he prepared to encounter someone believed to possess wisdom beyond the reach of ordinary minds. When his knuckles touched the wood, the door opened to reveal an elderly attendant. The man was unadorned and plain. His garments were simple, his posture modest, his presence unremarkable in every visible way. He looked like countless servants the visitor had passed throughout his life without a second thought. "I have come to see the holy man," the visitor said, his voice respectful but distracted. His eyes barely lingered on the old attendant, already drifting past him, searching the interior for signs of greatness, robes, symbols, or some unmistakable radiance. The old man smiled gently and inclined his head. "Please, come inside," he said softly, stepping aside to welcome the guest. They moved together through the dwelling. The visitor's pulse quickened as they walked, his gaze darting from corner to corner. He searched for evidence of sacred power, perhaps an altar, ancient scrolls, or an atmosphere thick with holiness. Yet each room they passed was modest and ordinary. Simple furnishings, plain tools, nothing that matched the image he carried in his mind. The attendant continued quietly, his steps unhurried, guiding the visitor onward. Before the man fully realized what was happening, they reached the rear of the house. The old servant opened the back door and gestured calmly toward the narrow path descending the mountain. The visitor stopped, startled. Confusion rose, followed by disappointment. "Wait," he said sharply, turning back. "I didn't climb all this way to be shown an empty house." He looked directly at the servant now, frustration breaking through his restraint. "I came to meet the holy man. Where is he?" The old man's smile deepened, his eyes warm with quiet understanding. "You have already seen him," he replied gently. Then he added, "And more importantly, I have a teaching for you, one that will resolve whatever burden brought you here." The visitor stared in disbelief. This ordinary figure could not be the one spoken of in legends. Where was the brilliance, the unmistakable authority, the dramatic signs of awakening? The servant spoke again, his voice soft, yet unwavering. "Here is the teaching. Every person you meet, no matter how ordinary they appear, see them as a wise and sacred being. If you can truly do this, the question you carry will dissolve on its own." The Buddha taught, "If you wish to know your past, look at your present life. If you wish to know your future, look at your present actions." This story reveals a quiet truth. We encounter only the wisdom we are prepared to recognize. What becomes available to us depends on how we see. Why do we search for insight in distant places and extraordinary figures, while overlooking the guidance woven into everyday encounters? Zen teachings remind us that the mind is conditioned to associate truth with spectacle, special robes, dramatic words, unusual settings. Yet the deepest wisdom often arrives without announcement, dressed in simplicity. The visitor's true obstacle was not the problem that led him up the mountain. It was his inability to recognize wisdom unless it matched his expectations. He searched so intensely for a holy image that he nearly missed the holiness standing before him. Consider your own daily life. How often do you overlook people because they seem ordinary, uneducated, or unimpressive? The cashier who greets you with sincerity. The cleaner who works silently with care. The child whose questions cut straight to the heart. Any of these moments may carry exactly what you need, if you are open enough to receive it. This teaching reshapes how we move through the world. Instead of waiting for wisdom to appear in dramatic forms, we begin to meet each person as a possible teacher. The stranger, the difficult colleague, even the one who irritates us most. Each becomes a mirror when we are ready to see. Zen Master Dogen said, "To study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self." When we recognize the sacred in others, the ego's need to feel superior quietly loosens its grip. The visitor's disappointment arose from wanting exclusive access to wisdom, rather than cultivating the ability to see wisdom everywhere. The Buddha observed that a single candle can light thousands more without diminishing its flame. In the same way, insight multiplies when it is recognized and shared. Every person carries this quiet capacity, but it reveals itself only to those who approach with humility. As you reflect on your own relationships, family, co-workers, passing strangers, where might wisdom be hidden in plain sight? What would change if you met each person as someone who might be quietly awakened? Tonight, as your mind begins to soften, can you practice this gentle seeing? Can you look beyond roles and appearances and sense the deeper presence each being carries? Perhaps your next teacher is already near, waiting only for recognition. As the Buddha taught, the sky makes no distinction between east and west. It is the human mind that divides and labels. In the same way, the boundary between holy and ordinary exists mostly in thought. When that boundary dissolves, wisdom appears everywhere. Now, let us turn to another story, one that explores appearances, generosity, and the subtle masks we wear. This is the tale of the hungry abbot and the gifted robe. In a lively merchant quarter of an ancient city, where silk traders prospered behind high walls, there lived a man of great wealth. His residence was adorned with carved stone gates, flowering courtyards, and servants who ensured nothing was ever lacking. Reputation mattered deeply to him, and he guarded it carefully among his peers. One rainy autumn morning, as water traced silver lines across the streets, a lone figure arrived at his gate. It was a Zen abbot from the mountains, though he appeared as little more than a beggar. His robe was patched and faded. His sandals were worn thin from long journeys. His wooden bowl bore the marks of countless humble meals. He stood quietly in the rain, unmoving, carrying the calm dignity shaped by years of practice. When the gatekeeper finally noticed him, disdain flickered across his face. "What do you want?" he snapped. "This is no place for wanderers. I am traveling and seek alms," the abbot replied gently. "Perhaps your master might offer a simple meal." The gatekeeper's eyes moved slowly over the monk, lingering on the frayed fabric, the weathered sandals, the empty bowl. Disdain hardened his expression. This was, to him, nothing more than another drifter hoping to take advantage of a wealthy household's generosity. "Leave," he said sharply. "My master does not give food to beggars. Seek alms elsewhere." The abbot received these words without resistance. There was no protest, no tightening of the jaw, no flicker of offense. He bowed softly, turned his back to the gate, and walked once more into the falling rain, his bowl resting lightly beneath his arm. Hours passed. Clouds thinned. Sunlight returned, washing the stone streets in gold. And once again, the same figure appeared at the gate. Yet now, everything looked different. The monk wore ceremonial robes of deep saffron and violet, silk embroidered with careful patterns, prayer beads gleaming softly against his chest. Though his posture remained gentle and unassuming, his appearance spoke clearly of high rank and long-established tradition. When the gatekeeper saw him approaching, his attitude transformed instantly. Alarm gave way to reverence. "Welcome, venerable master," he exclaimed, bowing repeatedly. "Please enter at once. My master will be honored by your presence." The wealthy man himself rushed forward, offering elaborate greetings and graceful bows. "What great fortune blesses our home today," he said warmly. "Please, allow us to serve you our finest meal." They guided the abbot into an elegant dining chamber. Servants moved swiftly, arranging a lavish feast: steamed fish, fragrant rice, tender vegetables, sweet delicacies prepared with care. The host sat proudly across from the monk, satisfied with his own generosity and discernment. When the meal was placed before him, the abbot did something unexpected. He did not eat. Instead, he removed his ceremonial robe with deliberate calm, folding it carefully, smoothing each edge. Then he placed the robe directly before the food, as though offering the feast to it. Rising slowly, he spoke clearly. "This meal is not for me," he said. "It is for the robe." Without another word, he turned and left the house, stepping back into the light, leaving behind silence, untouched food, and a host confronted with his own shallow judgment. The Buddha taught, "Do not judge by appearances. Beneath a poor cloak may dwell a rich heart." This story reveals how easily we mistake surface for substance. How quickly our minds assign worth based on symbols, fabric, status, polish, rather than presence. Why do we treat people differently based on what they wear, where they live, how they speak? Zen teachings remind us that the conditioned mind seeks shortcuts. It labels, ranks, and assumes, sparing itself the deeper work of seeing clearly. The abbot never changed. His compassion, insight, and stillness were the same in rain-soaked rags as in embroidered silk. Only the eyes of those who met him shifted. Look gently into your own habits of perception. How does your attention change when someone arrives in expensive clothing? How does it withdraw when another appears worn or unpolished? Each reaction reveals conditioning we rarely question. Zen practice speaks of the original face, the self before titles, roles, and costumes. This face is unchanged by praise or neglect, luxury or scarcity. The master said, "Your original face is neither born nor destroyed." By offering the meal to the robe, The abbot exposed how often we honor appearances rather than essence. We bow to symbols while overlooking the living being before us. Tonight, as your breath slows, consider the many roles you wear throughout the day. Worker, helper, seeker, stranger. Can you sense the quiet awareness that remains constant beneath them all? A single gesture, offered in silence, can teach more than many words. The abbot's departure echoed across generations because it pointed directly to truth, without accusation. Now, we turn to a cautionary tale about pride in skill and the danger of standing apart. This is the story of the clever monkey. In ancient China, the Prince of Wu set out on a pleasure journey to Monkey Mountain, a place of dense forest and lively creatures. Surrounded by guards and attendants, he approached with the ease of one accustomed to obedience. At the sound of his arrival, monkeys scattered into the treetops, chattering in alarm. Branches shook. The forest felt tense and quiet. Yet one monkey remained. He leapt effortlessly from limb to limb, swinging with elegance, displaying his agility without fear. His movements were bold, confident, almost playful, as though the presence of power below meant nothing. The prince watched, irritation rising. This creature showed no submission, no caution. Its confidence felt like mockery. With a sharp motion, the prince drew his bow and released an arrow. The monkey caught it midair. A ripple of astonishment passed through the onlookers. The monkey examined the arrow briefly, then tossed it aside as if it were meaningless. The prince's face darkened. "Attack," he commanded. A storm of arrows followed. Overwhelmed, the monkey could not evade them all. In moments, he fell lifeless to the forest floor. Turning to his companion Yen Pui, the prince spoke coldly. "Did you see?" He trusted his cleverness. He believed himself untouchable. Remember this. Skill and distinction invite danger. Yen Pui carried these words deeply. Upon returning home, he reflected on his own talents, his reputation, his subtle pride. Quietly, he sought out a humble teacher and became his disciple. He released displays of brilliance, renounced excess, and learned to move unseen. He let go of everything that made him appear special, choosing instead the safety of simplicity. And there, in obscurity, his understanding began to mature. Through steady effort and quiet discipline, Yenpui refined his humility until it became effortless. He moved through the kingdom without display, without signal, without any trace of importance. He spoke little, acted simply, and asked for nothing. And yet, those who encountered him felt an unexpected stillness in his presence. There was something deep and difficult to name in his ordinariness, a calm that did not announce itself. People found themselves respecting him not because of what he showed, but because of what could be felt beneath the surface. The Buddha pointed to this truth when he said, "Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know." This story reveals a subtle danger on the spiritual path. The moment wisdom, insight, or skill becomes an identity, it begins to rot. Why do we feel the need to show what we have understood? Why does the mind quietly reach for recognition, even in matters of awakening? Zen teaches that the ego is clever. It can take even genuine realization and turn it into a badge, a way to feel separate, elevated, special. The very qualities that should soften the sense of self can instead harden it when we cling to them. Calm becomes superiority. Insight becomes distance. Compassion becomes performance. Like the monkey on the mountain, We may develop real abilities through practice: steadier attention, clearer perception, kinder responses. Yet when we identify with these qualities, when we use them to measure ourselves against others, they become dangerous. What once freed us begins to trap us. Here lies a quiet paradox of the path. The deeper the realization, the less visible it becomes. True wisdom does not announce itself. It settles. It blends. It becomes indistinguishable from simplicity. Humility is not an act. It is the natural fragrance of understanding interconnection, where no solid ground remains for feeling superior. Zen master Shunryu Suzuki spoke of "don't know mind, the heart of beginner's mind." This is not confusion, but intimacy with mystery. It is the recognition that no concept, no achievement, no experience can fully grasp life as it is. The monkey's tragedy was believing his cleverness made him exceptional, rather than seeing it as a passing expression of something much larger than himself. The Buddha said, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." Yenpui discovered that by becoming nobody special, by hiding his distinctions rather than displaying them, his presence began to influence others more deeply than any demonstration ever could. He taught without teaching. He guided without effort. As you reflect on your own inner journey, notice gently where insight becomes identity, where moments of clarity, compassion, or calm turn into subtle pride. Each time practice becomes a way of defining who we are, we step closer to the monkey's fate, mistaking movement for freedom. Tonight, as you rest, allow yourself to be ordinary. Let go of being advanced. Let go of being wise. Can you find the quiet freedom of being nobody in particular, resting in simple awareness without adornment? The Buddha taught that those free from resentful thoughts find peace. And the deepest peace arises when we even release attachment to peace itself. Now, we turn to a gentle teaching about impermanence, the law that moves beneath all experience. This is the story of the meditation student and the wise reminder. A young student had been practicing meditation with sincere effort for several months. Each morning and evening, he sat on his cushion, following the breathing instructions his teacher had given. At first, the practice felt steady, but recently, everything seemed to unravel. On one particular morning, he could hardly sit for 5 minutes. His mind raced endlessly: work, memories, worries, unfinished conversations. His legs ached sharply. Sleepiness pulled him under whenever the thoughts briefly paused. No matter how hard he tried to focus on the breath, his attention slipped away again and again. After what felt like hours, though it was barely 20 minutes, he stood up in defeat and went to find his teacher. He discovered the old monk in the garden behind the meditation hall, calmly pulling weeds in the early light. "Teacher," the student said, his voice heavy with frustration, "my meditation is terrible. I can't focus at all. My body hurts, my mind won't stop, and when it does, I fall asleep. Everything about my practice feels wrong. It's just horrible." The teacher looked up slowly, soil still on his hands, and met the student's eyes with quiet familiarity. He listened without interruption, without concern, as though these words were as ordinary as the sound of wind in the trees. "It will pass," the teacher said simply. Then he returned to his weeding. The student stood there, stunned by the brevity of the response. He had expected instruction, correction, reassurance. Instead, he was given 3 plain words. With nothing more to say, he returned to his room, carrying the phrase like a stone in his pocket. Over the next days, he continued to sit. Slowly, the storms of thought weakened. His body adjusted. Small gaps of ease appeared between waves of distraction. By the end of the week, his practice felt transformed. Filled with relief and excitement, he sought out his teacher again, this time finding him sweeping fallen leaves in the courtyard. "Teacher," he said brightly, "my meditation is wonderful now. I feel clear, peaceful, alive. My body is comfortable. My mind is calm. Everything is finally right." The teacher paused, resting both hands on the broom, and looked at the student with the same calm eyes as before. "It will pass," he said softly. And in those words, the student received the teaching that governs all things. "Everything about my meditation is wonderful now." The teacher paused in his sweeping, lifted his eyes, and met the student with the same calm presence he had shown before. His voice did not change. His expression did not shift. "It will pass." This time, the words landed differently. The student felt no disappointment. Instead, a quiet understanding opened within him. He saw that the teaching was not about meditation alone, but about the nature of all things. Pleasant or painful, clear or confused, every experience arises, and every experience fades. The Buddha spoke gently of this truth: all things that arise are bound to pass away. Here lies the heart of the teaching. Impermanence is not a flaw in life, but its living rhythm. Yet we struggle against it endlessly. We cling to moments of peace as if they could be fixed in place. We resist discomfort as if pushing it away could erase it forever. In doing so, we exhaust ourselves trying to control what cannot be held. Zen reminds us that much of our suffering is born not from experience itself, but from our resistance to change. We grasp at what feels good. We fight what feels difficult. Both movements tighten the heart. The student's meditation had been horrible. Then it had become wonderful. But both states were equally temporary. The teacher's steady response pointed toward something deeper than either success or struggle. Not a stable condition, but a stable awareness. The open space in which all conditions appear, move, and dissolve. This is not the stability of frozen perfection. It is the quiet steadiness of presence itself. Consider your own days and nights. How much energy flows into maintaining good moods, holding on to ease, repeating moments that once felt right? And how much tension arises when sadness, restlessness, or uncertainty appears? Grasping and resisting are two sides of the same strain. In Zen practice, we learn a gentle balance. Equanimity with impermanence. This does not mean indifference. It does not mean we stop caring. It means we remain open and responsive, whether the moment is pleasant or painful, smooth or rough. "It will pass" carries both kindness and clarity. It comforts us when life feels heavy, reminding us that no storm lasts forever. And it humbles us when life feels light, preventing us from building our identity on passing states. Zen teacher Suzuki Roshi once said, "You are perfect just as you are, and you could use a little improvement." This is not a contradiction. It is a mirror of impermanence itself. We can fully inhabit this moment, just as it is, while knowing it will not remain. Look gently at your own patterns. Where are you trying to make something permanent that is, by nature, temporary? Where are you struggling against conditions that would soften on their own if met with patience? The Buddha taught, all conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence. This is not a call to detachment from life, but an invitation to engage fully without clinging, to love deeply without grasping, to practice sincerely without needing results to last. When we understand this, success no longer inflates us, and failure no longer crushes us. Pleasure and pain become waves on the surface, while beneath them, awareness remains calm and wide. Tonight, as you notice what is present in your body and mind, ease or tension, clarity or fog, can you hold it gently? Can you allow it to be exactly as it is, while remembering it will pass? The Buddha said that just as the ocean has one taste, the taste of salt, this path has one taste, the taste of liberation. Liberation does not come from achieving permanent peace, but from moving gracefully with change. As our time together draws to a quiet close, pause for a moment. Notice the calm that has settled. See that it is not something given to you, but something uncovered. This stillness has always been here, waiting beneath movement. Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment, the Buddha advised. Calm and insight do not depend on perfect conditions. They arise from simple attention, available whenever you turn inward. Each story tonight has pointed to the same gentle truth, that struggle loosens when met with acceptance. That freedom grows when expectations soften. That peace emerges when experience is allowed to come and go without judgment. Even if thoughts wander, even if restlessness briefly returns, the understanding you have touched is now part of you. Quiet, steady, and accessible. As you prepare for sleep, feel the weight of your body resting. Notice the rhythm of your breath. Sense the openness of your awareness, spacious and kind. These teachings do not lead you somewhere else. They invite you to be here. May this ease accompany you through dreams and waking. May this balance steady you through all changes. Thank you for walking this quiet path with Silent Monk. Sleep gently.